I have called in over 30 game developers and given each 60 seconds to answer one very difficult question. What makes an RTS game fun, and how will your game achieve that? They will answer this while presenting their new or upcoming RTS games to you, while at the end of the video I will give you my own answer and bring in a surprise guest. As one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain says, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. So let's hear from all these developers who had to make a great effort to condense their answer into just 1 minute.
I think one of the biggest aspects of making an RTS game fun is how the progression feels. Going from a small outpost to a massive sprawling base, and starting off with very basic units, to having the most powerful parts of your arsenal, and upgrading your forces. In D.O.R.F, we plan on vastly expanding your base building mechanics and making it a larger part of the game. Not just creating your normal varying factory types, but also arranging them to get the best layout for the most efficient logistics. You'll be using your infantry to establish a front line by digging defensive trenches, while your proper base is defended by more permanent walls and static defensive structures. Even the environment will change. As it becomes scarred by battle, forests and vegetation are burned down, cities are flattened from the heavy fighting, and salvageable vehicle wrecks litter the landscape. We even plan on doing this with water, where dams and other natural retaining barriers can be destroyed, flooding the landscape, or players being forced to create pontoon bridges or backfilling rivers to cross watery terrain.
Ultimately, RTS games are super fun because they reward long-term thinking and planning for those of us who like to overthink their games, and because giant laser robots blow stuff up. As you learn an RTS game, you develop strategies that you refine over many matches, learning how and when you can pull them off. And when it does all go to plan, it feels great. You are the architect. You are the puppet master. Sanctuary Shattered Sun offers the players multiple paths to victory. There is no one way to win. You can spam units, go air, upgrade land tech, eco, PD creep, upgrade your commander, or create earthquakes, sending your enemy hurtling down to the sun. Sanctuary focuses on strategy, not micro, and I can't wait to cross swords with you soon.
So we at ZeroSpace believe that there are 5 pillars that make for a great RTS game, and just missing out on one of them can destroy the entire experience, which is why we regard all 5 as a top priority. Number 1 would be gameplay and game design. You need fun and well-paced gameplay, cool game mechanics, well-designed and interesting factions, and rich tech trees. Number 2 is controls. You need butter, smooth controls, great pathfinding, great unit avoidance, snappy response times, and also customizable hotkeys. Number 3 is world building. You need a good story, awesome lore, and a game world that makes you want to spend time in it. Number 4 is visuals. There's no need for high-end graphics. Even something like pixel art can be phenomenal and stunning, but whatever style you choose, make it beautiful and coherent to the story that you want to tell, and allow people to immerse into the world and to dream. And number 5 is balance. Every unit should have its place, and many different strategies and build orders should feel viable, allowing players to explore countless different strategies and play in their favorite way without feeling at an inherent disadvantage, because frustration is the number 1 enemy of fun.
It's me, Mar from ZeroSpace. So what makes an RTS game fun? I'll split into 2 things. What makes RTS a uniquely fun genre? What's the essence of RTS? I think RTS is about being able to build and choose which units and buildings you want to command in large tactical battles. No other genre really uses those 2 elements the same way. Having lots of viable choices in what you want to do is a big part of this. And then being able to have another gameplay layer where you can use and test those choices in real-time tactical scenarios. ZeroSpace has the largest combination of choices with over 200 units and buildings and tons of upgrades. Then, it's about every little detail working in unison. This is what generally makes good game development hard to do. These are things like good game feel, not being frustrated when you're controlling your units, and also marrying the gameplay with the player and story fantasies. ZeroSpace is doing a lot here by having one of the best unit and pathing controls. As we get closer to release, we've started going over every sound, VFX, animation to make them feel really good.
Hi folks, Ptaco here from the bar team. If I had to name one thing that makes RTS fun, I would first zoom out to what makes games, or even play in general, compelling. For me, it's this beautiful dance between concepts of chaos and order, the dissonance and harmony. RTS games capture this especially well. They place the chaos of warfare right in your hands, but at the same time, they give you the tools to control it, shape it, and make it your own. That idea sits at the heart of Bar. On one side, there is the insane scale at every level. Forget population caps or limited resources, escalated into the extreme. There is no coincidence we call it beyond all reason. It's loud, dense, and intentionally overwhelming. But chaos on its own isn't enjoyable. What makes it work in Bar is pairing that scale with the powerful sense of control. Through tools like formation drawing, area commands, the interface simply fades away and lets you put your own order into this chaos. And that's when the fun begins.
What makes an RTS game fun? For us, it's that timeless loop the genre owns better than anyone else. You start small, you build, you expand, you progress. Your base becomes an extension of your decisions. Your army becomes your voice on the battlefield. And every sound, every animation, every bit of feedback tells you you are in command. That's the RTS experience at its purest. But the real excitement comes when the game surprises you. New units, new mechanics, twist that pushes you to rethink your approach without breaking the genre flow. That's where freshness lives. We are careful not to spoil anything, but in Defcon 0 we are taking everything that already makes RTS fun and elevating it, not by reinventing the genre, but by sharpening its strength and layering in systems that makes each match feel alive, reactive and strategic in a way that stands apart in today's market. It's the classic RTS feeling, you know, just deeper, more expressive and built to give players those one more match moments. That's what we're aiming for, a game that feels familiar yet unmistakably its own, a game that doesn't just join the RTS space, but earns its place in it.
The RTS genre is vast, and players look for different things in each title. But what truly makes it exciting is the dynamic puzzle at its core, adapting through smart planning and quick actions to overcome ever-changing situations. Combine that with the thrill of commanding diverse armies and factions, and you get endless replayability. Liquidation steps into a space left open by classics like Warcraft and Armies of Exego. Instead of chasing massive scale or lightning-fast micro, it delivers more intimate, tactical battles. Success comes from building the right army composition and using unit abilities strategically, keeping gameplay dynamic without overwhelming players. With unique factions, heroes, base building, and a strong campaign, Liquidation refines the classic RTS formula while adding its own spin. The result is a smoother, more accessible experience that still delivers depth, variety, and the thrill of strategy. Exactly what makes RTS games unforgettable.
A huge part of what makes an RTS campaign enjoyable is its narrative, and with the Chronicles series of DLCs for Age of Empires 2, we're pushing the boundaries of storytelling in the RTS genre, with great writing and dialogue, exceptional voice acting, and strong, distinct characters. And we're also delivering narrative through gameplay, getting the player to experience the story directly through sophisticated level designs which get the player's emotions and mindset to match those of the character as whom they play. Now, I truly believe that the RTS genre is a wonderful and underestimated medium for great storytelling, and with Chronicles, I believe we've created something which stands up as an excellent piece of historical fiction, as well as a showcase for how modern, narrative-driven games don't just have to be RPGs, you can get just as much narrative depth in the strategy genre.
So I don't think there's any one thing that makes a real-time strategy game fun, and that's why there are so many different games. Some are more tactical, some are more strategic, and I love them all for different reasons. But I think what makes RTSs fun for me at least, is the feeling I get when I watch a big army of units smash into another big army of units, or an enemy base. There's something that harkens back to my childhood when I play an RTS. When I was a kid, I'd play with action figures like G.I. Joes, and get all the troops and vehicles set up to have these big battles, but then I'd have to clean up all the toys afterward, and that was always a bit of a pain as a kid. In Ashes of the Singularity II, a lot of that setup and cleanup is basically handled by the army system. The game makes it super easy to set up a big army, smash it into something, and then have it automatically reinforce, and so you can do it all over again. You find yourself able to focus on the war front rather than on the tedious logistics of constantly building and having to re-rally new troops. It's an entirely different way to play a large-scale RTS, and it's such a joy to play.
For me, RTS games are fun because they let players step into the role of a commander and really flex those strategic muscles. You're building up your forces, controlling multiple units, and pulling off complex, clever maneuvers to outsmart your opponent for a decisive victory. In Sins of a Solar Empire 2, you start with a single planet and a handful of ships, slowly expanding outward as you explore the solar system. You take over planets and asteroids, shaping an entire star system into an impenetrable fortress while producing fleets of ships that clash in these massive, spectacular battles. Fleet composition matters too. Scouting your opponent and building the perfect counter to their strategy is incredibly satisfying. And thanks to the new orbital mechanics in Sins 2, you can also outflank your opponent entirely, forcing them to watch helplessly as you destroy their homeworld because they didn't anticipate your movements. The scale of Sins ranges from what feels like a back alley knife fight to full galactic warfare, with battles stretching across hundreds of planets and thousands of ships and strikecraft. The game really does live up to its old tagline, real-time strategy at an unrivaled scale.
So, I've never really quite played RTS games the way they were intended to or competitively. Instead, I've always enjoyed finding those little exploits, playing custom scenarios, or using the map editor to turn them into almost a base building experience, where you're letting massive hordes of enemies crash into your growing defenses. That has always felt super satisfying to me, and it's likely the reason why our game Dawn of Defense is built around that feeling, focusing on real-time wave defense where you're constantly expanding, adapting, and optimizing under pressure. I love discovering unique upgrade paths for troops and buildings, experimenting with different combinations and watching powerful synergies emerge over time. That steady, impactful sense of power progression where every upgrade noticeably changes how your strategy plays, that has always been the most exciting part for me. And that's exactly why our upcoming RTS and tower defense hybrid, Dawn of Defense, Steam them around the corner, sign up for the playtest now, puts a strong focus on those elements while combining real-time wave defense, meaningful progression, and the classic tower defense gameplay.
I love the mix of short and long-term decision making in RTS and how these decisions are made on the fly with patchy information. The fun is in taking on the role of a commander, pitting your wits against an opponent or fighting your way through a scenario. The real-time, somewhat fuzzy, semi-realistic nature of these games is vital as it helps sell that fantasy. The goal is to be a strategist, not just a solver of sterile puzzles. Players should be flexing their creativity and come out of it feeling like geniuses. Zero-K achieves this by giving players tons of tools and unmatched freedom with which to assemble their strategies, while avoiding the kinds of solo busywork that just get in the way of making and implementing your plans. We have some really out there mechanics such as full terrain manipulation and gravity guns, as well as over 100 units spread across a bunch of modular minifactions. It might sound too good to be true. What's to stop all this extra stuff just being a bunch of bloated gimmicks? Luckily, we have an active community that's been pushing the game to its limits for over a decade. Although when balancing, we always try to keep units feeling powerful, sometimes even a bit broken, as there's nothing worse than a bland mess. This was a great foundation for our single player campaign, which is a must have, and the result is a game that becomes more interesting as you explore it, rather than feeling solved.
Hello Peter, it's a great pleasure to be part of your channel. Now the fun factor of the Scouring comes from 3 ingredients: simple game rules, perfect controls, satisfying combats. That one last is especially important for me because I only play games with high attention to details. So our game is very easy to hop into. In fact, we have AI assistants that help players in both single player and multiplayer. We also have what we call a heroes mode, where you only control your hero, the rest of the game works by itself. Many players actually prefer it more than the classic RTS mode. We also have a lot of cool things on the way, like epic naval ship battles and of course single player campaign. So try out our game if you haven't already. We have a free demo available on Steam, and thank you guys and have a good day.
I think there's a lot of good answers to this, and I'm actually really curious to hear what the other devs say. But for me personally, it's all about strategizing or plotting, basically looking at the map and figuring out how can I pick this apart. So maybe there's like one big enemy base that's got tanks, there's another one with harassing aircraft, but then there's like this big open resource node you could expand to. And so just looking at this and then thinking like, okay, well maybe I could like sabotage the base with the tanks, or like, you know, I could soften them up with an airstrike, or I could get my Navy in range. You know, just exploring all those options is a lot of fun for me. For my own game, I have briefing screens beforehand to give like an overview of the map, and then on the map itself I always try to have like 2 to 3 different rails or lanes that the player can go down. And then my unit unlocks are actually done on the map itself. So when they're trying to decide which way they want to go, they can kind of look at it and go, okay, well, I don't want to go left and get tanks, or go right, maybe get like some stealth choppers, something like that. Really just trying to give them some options and decisions they can make.
Hi there, I'm John Duffel from Studio 568. We're making an RTS called Calyx, which will be out soon on Steam, so do look out for it. To answer the question, what makes an RTS fun, I think for me it's allowing space for the player to set themselves small goals. Goals that aren't explicitly laid out but are personal and strategic to them. This might be sort of choosing to try and reach that tree line over there, or try and stretch the area that you control, or it might be choosing one unit type over another, or which enemy you attack first. These sort of little 5-10 minute decisions you're making throughout a playthrough that sort of punctuate your experience. In Calyx we do this by sort of giving you levels that allow more than one route for you to go through, or maybe there's different start locations. We've got diverse units, and you sort of choose how to build those up. You can choose how to take on this sort of massive enemy and how you carve it up and work your way through it. So there's lots of sort of setting your own goals. So yeah, a structure that promotes coming up with your own ways to play. Thanks so much, and be sure to try out Calyx.
I think what makes an RTS fun is meaningful decisions, planning and pressure. Everything you do matters, and you constantly have to adapt. Your choices affect how you play and how your enemy is forced to respond. Global Conflagration delivers that in several ways. Like many RTS games, we have distinct units and asymmetric factions. But we also focus heavily on creating a dynamic map experience. You're always fighting for territory and resources, instead of just bunkering down. It actually pays off to move out, take ground, and literally touch on grass that's just outside your comfort zone. In the end, it's all about impactful choices, and Global Conflagration is designed to make every decision count.
Powerplay is an RTS that gives a military dimension to Factorio. This is a game that can be fun for players that enjoy building systems of production, managing resource chains and logistics, but are also hungry for military action. We think these are a very fun elements to combine. Once you build your automated factory, you can focus your attention elsewhere, on exploring the map, or optimizing, or managing the army. We are working on a campaign, and we also have replayable game modes like skirmish and survival. And we also have a fully scriptable game editor, and we want to make it easy to mod the game. The playtest is coming soon, but we don't have a official date yet. So stay tuned, and we are hopefully going to give you news very soon. Thank you.
At its heart, our game is powered by nostalgia. We are building a game we always wanted to play, reminiscent of the legendary titles we grew up with. Supported by mechanics deep enough to sink your teeth into, and a campaign with twists that makes it a story worth exploring. You got rebels turning their mining tools into weapons, Orbis looking to instill order the only way they know how, through fear and force, and a Sentex looking to force that next step in human evolution. Each campaign offers a radically different perspective on the struggles for humanity's future. You're not just building armies, you are exploring the moral gray area of the Red Planet, and the choices and failures of humanity. The pacing gives players room to learn, strategize, and appreciate every unit as something special, since each one shapes the battlefield in a unique way. No high-pressure APM moments, not too much stress, and no overly complicated systems that take months to master. We think that's the whole point and what makes it fun. You download it, load it up, and you instantly know what you're supposed to do. We hope players will recognize this vision and follow our journey as we work toward delivering a fully polished RTS game built to last.
A great RTS is all about three things: understanding pressure, and for us, most of all, choice. You need to understand the battlefield and the objectives. Also, you got to feel the pressure of every decision, and then the payoff. When your choices, your strategy, things that you've implemented when they work. With Fleetbreakers, we've taken kind of a inspiration from those roots and pushed them in a new direction. You're commanding squadrons instead of micromanaging units. Combat has movement, timing, even added skill shots that make the battles feel more alive. We've also broken the traditional long campaign into a roguelite style mission, so you can still get the meaningful choices that you expect, but with quicker rewards and more room to experiment, I guess. Classic strategies like Rush and Boom, of course, they're still there, and that's the foundation of the game, but we keep surprising you and we force you to adapt. I think that mix of familiar RTS depth with the fresh mechanics I mentioned is what excites us and what makes Fleetbreakers stand out.
To make an RTS fun, I think it needs to have a good balance of a strong story-based campaign and a responsive multiplayer engine. The campaign is great for immersing yourself in an unknown world and learning the mechanics of the game while discovering what makes each unit and structure unique. We're putting a lot of work into the story and dialogue for our game to make sure each mission is interesting and exciting. Once you've had enough of the campaign, it's time to test your skills against other players. This is the part I find most exciting because if the game is built well, you'll want to push yourself to your skill ceiling and constantly challenge yourself to improve. The multiplayer aspect is different from other genres because it's very difficult for other players to cheat. On top of that, you're constantly needing to adapt your strategy while also paying close attention to your income, your base expansion, and your growing army. In Fungal Front, I've built the whole game with the multiplayer experience in mind, to ensure that you get a smooth, jitter-free experience while playing competitively. However, multiplayer doesn't have to be adversarial. You can also play with your friends against the AI in co-op mode and have just as much fun.
What makes a game fun is very personal. Maybe this is something for you. Counterclash is all about feeling smart and looking good doing it, while offering much gameplay depth and not taking yourself too serious. It's a tactically deep game with intuitive mechanics that are easy to pick up. The many counter systems are woven into streamlined economy and troop management to allow you to immediately start strategizing without looking into spreadsheets or stats. Everything in the game is hand-drawn, so you can enjoy fun animations and cool environments, with troops walking in neat formations and getting thrown around by explosions. Last but not least, Counterclash offers a large amount of variation in its 3 factions and over 30 unique units, impactful upgrades, powerful heroes, and even boons to customize how you'd like to play those factions. Different map layouts and environmental hazards make sure you'll never get bored adapting into new strategies.
To me, what makes an RTS game fun is the freedom it gives you to achieve your goals, where every decision you make changes the course of the conflict and also lets you outsmart your enemies. In the last general, I'm giving you complete freedom to manage your economy, build your production facilities and defenses, produce units, and change your strategies and doctrines on the fly. This opens up a ton of possibilities with trade-offs between unit quality versus production time and cost, and lets you play the game in your favorite style. You could choose to have a smaller army that is more advanced, or you can have thousands of soldiers with almost no training, or go for air superiority, or just prioritize your economy and production and build hundreds of factories to grow your army faster. That freedom to use all your tools however you want makes every match in the last general unique, and it lets you respond to the crazy strategies that the enemy will also be throwing at you with those tools.
For us, 2 aspects of the RTS genre are particularly exciting. Firstly, controlling an army made of different units. This adds tactical depth and also a lot of replayability. Of course, it gets really interesting when there are several factions that are noticeably different from each other. We want to achieve this by giving the multiple factions in our game not only visual differences, but also offer different approaches and challenges in terms of gameplay, with their strengths and weaknesses varying. Secondly, the immersion, the force of the battle. We love to see heavy tanks rolling unstoppably across the field while shells bounce off their armor and artillery fire rains down in the distance. To recreate this in our game, we put a lot of work into impressive graphics that invite you to simply look at the world and the units. Our goal is for players to not only see the massive tanks and behemoths, but also feel it.
What makes an RTS fun in general is the fantasy of being a commander. To plan, to produce, to build up your army and base, to pick and choose the best strategy to overcome the enemy, or to react to what's happening in real time. But in my opinion, what makes an RTS unique is the story. Think about the many RTS you played. Probably the ones that stood out for you are the ones immerse yourself not only in this fantasy but also in everything that surrounds it. Timefront is going to achieve this mainly through its campaign. We're introducing a campaign with branching paths, compelling characters and deep world building, but also in the small details, like things you can see in the environment such as ruins of past times or the voice lines of the characters giving you hints of the universe behind the game. We are going to immerse the player not only in this fantasy of commanding and building up, but also in the world the game is set in.
I think there's lots of things that can make an RTS game fun. To me, the immersion has always played a big role. When I play Kane's Wrath, for example, I feel like I'm being part of a Tiberian cinematic universe. I also enjoy watching my units clash with the enemy and the creative element of RTS games. Trying different unit combinations and strategies, these are some of the experiences I try to channel into the development of Assembly RTS. There's the immersive aspect. A desolate ice age permeates the game. I try to minimize the use of obtrusive UI, and the hovercraft which are physically simulated can run into each other, making everything feel more tangible. And the assembly, where you get to set up your faction, which units to train and a place to configure individual components and upgrades.
So, when I started on my game, the first feature I added was a world map. And you could click on the worlds to paint them in your color. And this was insanely addictive. Like every time I tried it, I had to fill the full map by clicking all the nations. Maybe it is some deep territorial instinct that you have as a human. Claiming area is just very addicting and fun. And even now, almost 12 years later, that is one of the most rewarding aspects of the game, is painting the map in your color.
What makes RTS games fun to me is the rush of commanding an army that reacts in real time. You click, the battlefield moves. In Moduwar, we push that further. Your army is a living organism. You grow organs, split and merge them, and reshape your creature mid-fight. I also love the endless strategies. Different units, abilities, maps and biomes turns RTS into a giant "what if I try this" machine. In Moduwar you can combine organs to unlock new powers, like a mouse plus an acid gland that spits acid, and you face strange NPCs and bosses that force you to change tactics every time. For me, the goal is easy to pick up, hard to master. We're still polishing the easy part, but the hard to master, I think we nailed it. And that's what I love about Moduwar.
The core fun of an RTS comes from the non-stop stream of decisions. Your most important resources aren't units or supplies, they are your time and attention, and every choice matters. First, a constant pressure. The game changes every second and players must constantly react and adapt to the new conditions. Second, the unknown. The map is partly hidden, so you are always making decisions with incomplete information. You guess, predict your opponent and hope your plan will work. That combination, the ticking clock and the fog of war, is what keeps players locked in. It makes the game feel alive and keep you fully engaged in the moment. In Panzer Strike, we are building the entire experience around this idea. You command large-scale World War II battles with their own momentum. Your job is to read the situation, spot threats earlier, allocate your forces, commit reserves at the right moment, and use terrain and unit traits to turn tides in your favor. Each mission is fast-paced and exciting, and your decisions keep the action moving.
For me, variety in gameplay is what makes an RTS game fun. When I boot up a new game, I love feeling like I'm dictating the strategy to win. My decisions have a real impact, and I get to play how I want to play. I get to test other people's strategies, I get to test my own strategies, and I can find out not just how to have fun, but have the best time doing so. I hate having RTS games tell me how to play, like one crazy long tutorial. Sometimes I'll lose, sometimes I'll win, but that's part of the game. And for me, being able to test all these different ways to play an RTS game and find my own unique way to play is what makes RTS games so different from other games, and frankly so much fun. In Coloniser, it's a persistent RTS game over 90 days. Guidebooks don't quite work, so the meta on day 7 looks entirely different than on day 1, and even more so on day 30, 60, and 90. Every world you're in has its own lore because you've shared it with all these other distinct people for months. You've made allies, you've fought battles day after day with similar people, and you've destroyed some people off the server probably, or have been destroyed yourself. Ultimately, I think it's going to be very messy, chaotic, and hopefully a lot of fun.
So what actually makes an RTS game fun? For me, it's a mix of two things, simplicity and variety. I think the game should be easy to understand when you first jump in, nothing overly complicated, nothing that makes new players quit instantly. But at the same time, it can't be boring. But there has to be enough variety so every match feels a little different, and you have to always have new strategies to try. That's what keeps the game replayable, and that's exactly what I'm doing with Cubic Annihilation. I wanted the basics to be super clear and simple, but I also want players to feel like they have lots of options once they know what they're doing. So instead of picking a faction like most RTS games, you pick a loadout, and that choice completely changes how you play. Different loadouts give you different units, different ideas, and totally different playstyles. So that way the game stays simple but never boring. So the whole goal with Cubic Annihilation is to make an RTS game that's easy to learn, full of variety, and always fun to come back to.
What makes a real-time strategy game fun? I was introduced to the genre with World of Warcraft, Dune 2, the original Command & Conquer series when I was younger. I later enjoyed games like Command & Conquer Generals, Battle for Middle-earth, and similar games. I like a moderately paced experience with fun visuals and a few layers of tactical depth to think about. I have fun when it feels like there are a lot of different ways to play in a lot of different environments to play in without the weight of a large learning curve. Endeavor is designed to maximize the experience of discovery with variety while minimizing overall complexity by simplifying tech progressions and player controls. Each of the three factions has unique tech, units, superpowers, and battlefield tactics. On the visual side, Endeavor is loaded with visually diverse environments to play in and physics-enabled explosions that make every conflict feel visually unique. Try it out and let me know if you think Endeavor is fun. Thank you.
We've always felt RTS games are at their best when they don't tell you how to play, but instead give players the freedom to choose their own playstyle. With Here Comes the Swarm, we wanted players to define their own strategy from the very start. Every run begins with your deity and the Arcanum. Your deity grants unique blessings and buildings, while the Arcanum is a customizable talent board where you decide which powers to bring into the fight. You can lean fully into offense, pushing out aggressively and expanding fast. Or you can turtle up, build strong defenses and survive wave after wave. After each run, you unlock new blessings and talents, giving you more control over your approach. This lets you create your own builds, offensive, defensive, or something entirely unexpected. That's what keeps every run feeling fresh, even when you start from a similar idea. And when you succeed, it feels personal, like your strategy truly made it happen.
What makes an RTS fun? It's a bunch of little pleasures working together. Badass units and strategic choices, and your soldiers obeying orders properly. Your army needs to be varied and have interesting abilities. While faceless rank and file guns have their place, crazy iconic units are what makes an RTS special. If the units interact with each other in interesting ways, theory crafting and then testing the ideas in practice becomes fun. The controls are super important. Bossing your army around and watching them find out the smartest way to execute an order feels amazing. Having them turn around and take the scenic route for absolutely no reason doesn't. Controlling a motorbike should feel way different than a spearman. Big strategic choices are fun too. You need enough tools that you can pick the right mix of badasses, do the job, or turn around the table with a quick tech switch.
In my opinion, to truly enjoy RTS games, proper world building is essential. Since you are playing under pressure from other players, you need to understand the connections and consequences quickly. Economic, technological and unit development system must also be meaningful and integrated. Other key factors are the balance of micro and macro, the playability and the competitive AI with selectable difficulty levels. In Battles of Chaos, you can easily understand the world, as it is a medieval fantasy, where more armor means more protection and stronger looking creatures mean more attack damage. This is also supported by the realistic artistic style and the use of real building proportions. The asymmetrical faction design improves replayability and plays a significant role in the campaign. Squad-based combat requires less micro, and you can pause the game to think calmly and issue new commands. The game's economy is simple and focused on the veterancy system and equipment upgrades.
So what makes an RTS game fun, and how are we going to do that with Space Tale? I think for this one, at least for me, it goes back to my very first experience of RTS, Craft 2 and Dungeon Keeper, and I was a kid that sucked at the time. I would spend hours on the same mission, save the game, you kind of stuck, and it was pre-internet era, so there was no solution. You had to figure everything on your own. RTS makes you feel very weak at first. You usually start with like one small building, a few workers, and you're supposed to take on full kingdoms, armies or swarms of aliens. There's this slow grinding of clearing the map, watching all the green on the mini-map and the fog of war clearing. That feels so good. For Space Tale, we designed our second enemy faction with this in mind, the Killbots. We're almost ready to show more about them, but we're still in the balancing phase. And unlike the Nexera, we're attacking wave from outside of the map. The Killbots are already here, all on the map. It's a huge army that you can't take from the start. And if you don't make the right decision and expand, you will die. So you cannot turtle here, you can't stay behind your walls, you have to go on the offense and feel the satisfaction of total extermination of the enemy, not just surviving.
Questioned what makes a game fun. I think it should be easy to learn and it should offer interesting choices. Players should be able to play their own style. You want to play offensive, defensive, the game should all offer that. And how does Retro Commander achieve that? I think it's somewhat easy to learn. Left click to select, right click to target, but then yeah, it's a little bit more complicated. You need to collect assets to build your army and your base. It has interesting choices in regards to weapons. You have different types of weapons, like regular bullets, rockets, EMP, you can stun your enemies, you have nukes. You have different types of units to do recon or spy missions, stealth units. You can play air or ground units. And yeah, it comes with base building.
I love engine building in RTS games. Turtling at the start, slowly building up my strength, and then scaling into an unstoppable force. But I understand that this isn't how every player enjoys playing games. Some like the Zerg Rush, some like a more balanced Swiss Army knife of a force. In my opinion, RTS games are at their best when they allow the player to build an army that fits their playstyle. In Tabletop Tavern, it's all about player agency. You can select a starting army and build around it, obtaining gear during your runs which will turn your enemies to dust. I grew up loving miniature wargaming. I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings, and when playtesting Tabletop Tavern, I am constantly building a cavalry force worthy of answering Gondor's call. But you can also load up on rangers that fire so many arrows you blot out the sun, or just amass enough artillery to reenact the Battle of Verdun on some poor goblins. Tabletop Tavern takes that player agency and blends the RTS genre with roguelikes that give you that one more run feeling, and I'm loving how it's coming along.
So what makes an RTS game fun? For most people, it's three things: building a base and economy that grows from nothing into a war machine, making big strategic decisions under pressure, where to attack, what to attack into, and how to react to threats, as well as feelings of power when you unleash your big army, super weapons, or simply outsmart your opponent. Fractured Alliance is trying to nail exactly that. Classic Command and Conquer style base building and harvesting. We also have 3 different factions, including the Collective, which automates a lot of boring micro. That way you can focus on strategy. This faction is designed specifically for newcomers with a lot of automation, so it makes it more of a hands-off faction. For instance, there are drones that automatically scout for the players, that defend, there's anti-air drones. All of those act autonomously, but you can still control them as a collective. And last but not least, over-the-top stuff like nukes, weather control devices, storms, giant mechs, nuke-throwing robots, airdrops of heavy tanks, and orbital bombardments are all things that players can do in Fractured Alliance.
This last developer is not very good with English, so I'm going to read his answer to you, but what is important is that he is great at making RTS games. For him, an RTS game must be challenging, unpredictable, and exciting. Challenging because the player needs to feel that everything they do has weight, every decision matters and impacts the game from the beginning through the middle game and all the way to the end. It's not just about fast clicking, it's about thinking, planning and living with the consequences. Unpredictable because having a larger army should never guarantee victory. Strategy must always prevail. Positioning, timing, reading the opponent and adapting need to matter more than sheer numbers. And exciting because the player should surprise the enemy or be surprised by a better tactic. No cookie-cutter strategies or fixed formulas. Every battle should feel different. In Empire Eternal, he pursues this in 3 ways. By creating large-scale battles with thousands of living units on screen, by making every strategic choice truly impactful, and by ensuring dynamic combat where vision, movement and decision-making determine the outcome, not brute force. In closing, I would like to share 2 more perspectives on this question with you, but also ask that you try to give your own answer in the comments of this video. Both of these final perspectives are quite personal, and one of them is from my own 7-year-old son, who I have been teaching to play RTS games for over a year now. Do note that so far he has played Age of Mythology Retold, Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, Warcraft 3, Battle for Middle-earth, The Scouring, and tried out a few others. So let's hear why RTS games are fun for him.
Zato što ima titana, zašto možeš beskonačno na titana, moraš da razmišljaš, borbe, bacanje magija, možeš da šalješ kad god vojsku te napadnu I kad nisu spremni.
Now, as for my own answer to this very difficult question, and after listening to all these developers and hearing their visions of real-time strategy gameplay, I have to say that a fun RTS experience boils down to just 3 aspects: storytelling, technical performance, and atmosphere. A campaign set in a believable world with lore that permeates all game aspects, along with memorable characters who go through a profound journey, completes the storytelling requirement. Proper pathfinding, units which precisely obey a wide range of available orders, a base building or upgrade setup in an intuitive economy system which is easy to learn but hard to master, completes the technical performance requirement. And lastly, to complete the atmosphere requirement and become a fun RTS to play, a game must look apart, with a unique art style and inspire awe with battles which look and sound great. Was that 60 seconds? Ah, good. It would have been unfair if I gave myself more time than all these amazing game developers, who I want to thank not just for being part of this video, but also for all their years of working on this game genre we love so much. Remember, their games are linked in the description, so go play them, wishlist them, follow them, and join their Discord channels. I hope you have enjoyed this very different video style and that you will want me to do it again in the future. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!